Okay, I think we're live. Maybe, hopefully. Um, just wanted to jump on and wish everyone a happy new year. Traditionally, we would be steaming up a locomotive right about now and getting ready for our New Year's Eve run, which has been a really long tradition at Swanton, started by Al back in the 80s, along with a few friends. But things are a little different this year. And unfortunately, it is what it is. So again, just wanted to wish everyone a happy new year, say good morning, and I've got Eric over here watching the chat and being a goofball. We'll just kind of go over some of the stuff that's happened in the last couple months. Right before Thanksgiving, Cal Poly changed the locks on everything for the railroad. They changed the locks on all of the cabooses, all of the containers where everything is stored, the machine shop. They even went as far as to change the locks on the garden shed. And so we have our volunteers have not had access to anything on the property for the last couple months now. This includes doing any work on the 502. We haven't had access to the cabooses that have a lot of our historical information in them, like any of the original photographs, anything like that. We haven't even been able to check the dehumidifier in either of the cabooses. So I have no idea what the creek is doing at this point in time. We were still dealing with a washout farther down the line. And so as far as I know, nobody has gone to check on that since we can't get there. Anyways, then after that happened, a very small group, including most of the board members, got an email from the dean of the College of Agriculture, Food, and Environmental Sciences. I'm reading the chat. Yeah, that's not good. So the letter from the dean said basically, and I'm paraphrasing this, and the entire letter has been posted on our Facebook page, so you can read it there. But the letter basically said, somebody told us it's going to cost $10 million to fix the railroad, so we don't want to. That's the abbreviated version of it. Like I said, the full letter is available on our Facebook page. And that came as quite a shock because we've had little to no communication from the dean or anyone at Cal Poly really for the last 2 years since the CZU fires. So with that being our communication, it was very shocking. And that has been the only communication so far, basically. Cal Poly also said, and by Cal Poly, I do mean the dean of College of Ag, and then later there was a very, very similar letter from President Armstrong. So I know I refer to them as Cal Poly, but those are basically the two people who we've had any sort of communication from, and that has been not much. Basically, it was the cost to rebuild the railroad was going to be too high. They did name the California State Railroad Museum as a potential new home or new steward for the equipment. However, they have not asked our volunteer base anything about this. They haven't asked us for any input. They have not responded to any input we have given them. I feel like we're probably in a holding pattern through the first of the year, easily, probably a little bit longer, because we've noticed that things at university levels don't usually move very quickly. So we'll kind of see what happens. As far as the locomotives and are they safe? Yes, they are. We made a huge effort a couple years ago, basically like I think it was 6 months after the fires. We made a huge effort to get all of the locomotives into conveniently 20-foot shipping containers. When you take the tender off of them, they fit perfectly. And that's actually something that we have done previously when the 1913 and then later the 1912 were shipped out to another shop for repairs. So we have one shipping container that is actually rigged up and set up to ship a locomotive, ship one of our locomotives. There's extra tie down points, there's extra bracing, lots of things like that. So we have one container that is totally ready to have a roadworthy setup. Then we have the other 3 steam engines are in just basic shipping containers. And it was a convenient thing to do. You know, they're great storage containers, and several of our volunteers actually put in electricals so they could have lights in there and work on things. I think I can't remember if they were running a dehumidifier and something or not. But anyways, so then Cal Poly went and changed the locks on us. So the status of each of the locomotives right now, the 502 is great. The 502, our diesel, was in the machine shop, and we still have the machine shop, even though the locks have been changed. It didn't burn. Some of the body work, though, the center hood section and the rear hood section were stored in the roundhouse, so they'll need to be pretty well extensively body worked and repainted. That's about it. There's some other work that needs to be done on the 502. It was down for service for new tires. Then that turned into maybe new wheels. And then that turned into maybe new axles. It's one of those projects that had just been kind of put off for a while. And then when we started digging into it, we realized there was more that needed to be done. But it does start, it does run, and it will need the least amount of work of anything to be operational again. As far as the steam engines go, the 1912 was not on site during the fire. The 1912 was at a shop out of state, and we got most of those parts back. There's another video on our channel here where I went really in depth when the 1912 was brought back to Swanton. It still needs some repairs, and it still needs some attention, but it is probably the closest to being operational at some point in time. The 1913, 1914, and the switch engine, the 1500, were all 3 in the roundhouse during the fire. The 1913 had a new welded boiler fabricated for it, and it was actually really close to being able to be run again before the fire happened. Now, not so much. It needs some more work. And the 1914 was actually next in line to have a new boiler fabricated. But the 1914 was complete. We had not started any major disassembly on it. And then the fire happened. I mean, it's reality. The 1500, the little switch engine, if you look at it now, it doesn't look all that different from when it did before. It's a little more rusty now. But it was down for a long time. It hadn't run since the, 80s, 70s, something like that. And it was under a really long-term overhaul and had kind of been a project on the back burner. So the 1500 needed work before the fire, and it still needs a lot of the same work. So other rolling stock, we still have a crane. It rolls quite nicely. It is incredibly rusty and needs a new motor and a new boom and several other things. So anyways, we still have that. Maintenance of way cars, the two ballast cars, the two ballast hoppers, are in actually decent condition, both having been in the car barn during the fire. The smaller one built by Keystone is in really good shape. It actually rolls really well, and it is straight, and it's going to need minimal repairs to be usable. The larger hopper that was built by our volunteer base is going to need a little bit more work, but not a lot.
The pneumatic door openers.
Yeah, the pneumatic door openers did not survive on the bottom of that hopper. But you know, that's something minimal in perspective here. We don't have any of our passenger cars left. All of our passenger cars were wooden construction. And in the car barn, when we got to get in there and clean things up, the only thing left were the trucks, the wheel assemblies, and the truss rods and couplers. That was it. So any of the work that was done on them is gone. So, however, they're not really complex. For anyone who's familiar with the Billy Jones Wildcat Railroad in Los Gatos, they run original McDermott cars, and actually they built a few new ones, I don't know, within the last few years. And so it's not impossible to remake those passenger cars. It just takes time, energy, and money. So let's see. I'm trying to mentally go down the list of our rolling stock. The three passenger cars that were built by Keystone, Keystone Light Railway, that's also built the 502 diesel. Well, we still have the frames for them, and one of them got pretty well crunched when the roof fell in on the machine shop during the fire. Car barn, I'm sorry, car barn. But the other two are probably rebuildable and not in terrible shape, but it's another longer term project. So anyways, I think that kind of wraps up our list of rolling stock. And let's see. Oh, there have been some questions before on Als Caboose. Al Smith, who was the president of Orchard Supply Hardware. Als Caboose is fine. It's a full size, mostly, it was a wooden.
It was a wooden SP Caboose converted to steel.
I have my consultant over here. Wooden SP Caboose converted to steel. Als Caboose is fine. Surprisingly, the fire went around it, along with the other three full-size cabooses that we have. So Als Caboose is fine. He used it as his office for a number of years. In the chat, yes, thank you. Drawings and yes, we did go talk to a couple people over at Wildcat a while back, and we look forward to talking to you guys again in the future too. And I'm glad you guys have drawings as well. A lot of our drawings were actually copies, and a lot of the originals went to the California State Railroad Museum. So fortunately, those are not totally lost. And I mean drawings, not just of the passenger cars, but also the drawings of locomotives and everything. So that is a good thing. it's just unfortunate that we don't have a lot of like any of the things that were stored in the roundhouse are gone. Any of there, we had some documentation in there. We had patterns. Any of the wooden patterns that we had are gone. So, all we can do is move forward from here. And with Cal Poly's recent announcements, it's been difficult. But I want to point out that our board members, our Railroad Society, we did not disband. We are still active. We're a small group. We're a very small group, but we're still active. And we're still committed to making sure that this equipment doesn't disappear. And we want to see it operational again, even if its home is not at Cal Poly. We're still looking at things. We're still trying to figure out what we can do. And communicating with Cal Poly has just been difficult. It's been a very one-sided conversation, and we'd like to see that change. We'd like to have more open communication and make sure that things are going to be okay. So
you send them a clearly worded letter, and they send you a form letter back.
Yeah, that has been difficult. That basically over the last couple weeks, months, days are all blending together. It's all been crazy. Basically, anyone who has emailed the dean or the president of Cal Poly has gotten basically the same form letter back. That it very much appears that they're not actually reading our emails. They have not returned phone calls. There's been, for 2 years we tried to organize a meeting with the dean and or the president, and they never even returned a phone call. So it's been very difficult, and we'd really like to see that change. We'd like to have some open conversation with them about what realistically is going to happen to the equipment. So anyways, that's kind of the update. I know we've been really quiet on Facebook, and especially quiet on YouTube, and I apologize for that. But that's kind of where we're at right now. So I think that pretty well covers what we've got going on. So anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. And I hope that we have some more news and some better news in the new year. And I just want to say that I promise you we're not done. We're, like I said, we are committed to making sure that the Overfair Railway equipment doesn't disappear, because that's the last thing anyone wants to see. So I'm going to end this on a good note. Happy New Year, everyone. And I wish we could be sitting around the bonfire next to a steam locomotive, drinking some hot cider. But we'll just have to look forward to that another year. So Happy New Year, everyone. And we'll talk to you later.